I thank everyone for your patience and for helping us out here. Really welcome to the 2020 Predictions, the Year of IT Resilience webinar. Before we get started, I really want to preface this by saying, when we looked at doing this assessment and these predictions, we didn't want to make it self-serving and be something that really would just serve our own solution needs and trap setting questions and stuff like that. What we really set out to do is we spoke to our customers, we spoke to analysts and even other vendors and really get a feel for what's going on in the industry, right? Not just around data protection, backup, and disaster recovery, but around future strategies as well, and really see what you're seeing, what our customers are seeing. And we really came up with 5 key predictions that we're going to go and discover today. So let's get started and make sure I can move my screen. For today's speaker, my name is Andy Fernandez. I'm a product marketing manager here at Zerto. So thank you everybody again for your patience. Let's get started. So prediction number 1, I think this one's an obvious one. The cost and consequences of downtime are going to increase. And I don't just mean the fact that you're going to get more downtime, but the fact that it's also going to get more expensive. Why? What are those factors that are leading to increased downtime? Well, you have ransomware. We're seeing an increased volume of specialized attacks. They're getting stronger, faster, better at higher volumes. You're dealing with aging infrastructure, right? You're trying to adopt new technologies, but you still have to manage legacy hardware and kind of merge both of them as well. And what this is leading to is you're still seeing a lot of aging infrastructure. Things go down without any warning, and they just lead to downtime. You have climate threats, right? I'm a Florida native, and I think I can attest to this more than anybody, just the intensity of what climate change is doing and how it's affecting the way that we have to deal with our environments, and even areas that previously wouldn't have been affected by things such as hurricanes and floods. The other one too is, as we see a growth in the adoption of the public cloud, those cloud outages will continue, right? And these things are just inherent and they happen, right? Because they also have to deal with the same downtime factors that everybody else does. The public cloud isn't infallible either. And then you're also dealing with disparate data. You have large organizations, global organizations that have regions and centers all over the place with disparate data and different databases and accesses and workloads. And what that does, and that added complexity, is also another factor that's leading to downtime. Now, if you look at what cost is as well, this is from our State of IT Resilience survey that we did for 2019. And what we did during this was we really assessed over 500 of your peers, system administrators, IT managers, directors, and VPs of IT and system architects, who are the ones dealing with downtime. And from that survey, we asked a lot of key questions around, what type of solutions are they dealing with? What does their technology look like? What are the disruptions they're facing? But also, what are the consequences of downtime and the disruption to their business? And what we found was that the average cost of downtime per hour across all these industries and organizational sizes was $250,000 an hour. Now, I preface this by saying the fact that this survey spanned across SMB and enterprise. So what you're seeing here is a mean number. But if you are exclusively a large-scale enterprise, we all know that this number is a lot higher. And if you look at collectively what that represented, most folks saw a mean rate of 8 hours of downtime per year, which led to collectively $2 million in downtime. Now, this was in 2019. And we've already stated, based on our predictions, that we think there's going to be more reasons that may lead to the risk of downtime. But there's another thing at hand here too. It's the fact that downtime itself is going to be more expensive. And why do we say that? Well, think about what your organization is doing. Every organization is undergoing digital transformations and digital initiatives that are really trying to open new streams of revenue, new customer access. And these are all really based on digital services that interrupted, then you're now dependent on them. And if you're interrupted, now you have downtime that's directly affecting your revenue. 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been an issue, or it would have been a lower ratio of your revenue. But as organizations and everyone really becomes a tech company, that's why downtime is getting more expensive for everyone. We're all more dependent on digital services and deliveries for our revenue as well. And you're also seeing an acceleration in the pace of enterprise application delivery. And now that's also dependent on digital services. And then at the end as well, you're seeing a continued growth and sprawl of IoT and edge data. And this is all really correlated towards understanding new markets, trying to disrupt themselves, especially if you're an incumbent. You're seeing all of these factors that that are making downtime so much more dangerous as well. Now, that really brings us to prediction number 2. And prediction number 2 kind of stems from number 1 as well. When we talk about what ransomware has done, and I don't just mean ransomware, but just all cyber attacks as a whole, what they're doing is they're driving a need for what we call cyber resilience. They're driving a shift in strategies because things are getting more dangerous. And cybersecurity folks in the industry has realized that there is no such thing as 100% protection. So when we look at the cost for 2019 and what we saw, it's pretty interesting. In the industry, we saw a total cost of ransomware for 2019 of $11.5 billion. Think about that. It's more than most organizations are in revenue. Now, when you talk about the increase, you're seeing a high increase in the volume as well of these attacks, over 850 million ransomware infections. That's over 300%. But finally, the most important value is the fact that you're seeing an average cost of recovery of $1.4 million. Now, when we mean that, we don't mean how much they paid for the decryption fee, right, or how much they paid for the ransom. But what it really showcases is this was the average cost of the recovery. What the service disruption was, what was the direct stoppage of their operations and their network, the reputational damage, the loss of productivity, all of these factors led to an average of $1.4 million per attack. Now, we think that's growing. We think it's going to be a larger volume, and we also think it's going to be even more dangerous. And when we say that this is really a statement that we've seen a lot from the consulting organizations. They're seeing a transition where before you saw a lot of sprawl of cyber criminals, especially in the ransomware space. People were pretty much purchasing accounts and having phishing attacks, and then also purchasing, basically code that they could purchase and implement. But what we're seeing now is, as we see more cybersecurity organizations enforce these things, you're seeing that sprawl kind of evolve towards cyber syndicates or even cyber criminal organizations that are really focusing and building themselves out as a company would. And they have their own R&D, they have their own innovation, and what's making them even more dangerous is that they're specializing, they're becoming niche. For example, a very common one, you see cyber criminal organizations move in and say, well, we're going to niche towards the oil and gas industry, perhaps because we have folks who have worked there and understand what are the IT vulnerabilities and the people vulnerabilities, and then they can exploit that. So instead of just sending out mass attacks, what they're doing is they're putting all their eggs in one basket and focusing for months or even years on how to exploit this specific organization or this specific industry. Now, that's making it a lot more dangerous, because it's not just going to be a cookie cutter attack anymore. It's going to be something that's much more pervasive and much more difficult to deal with because they have a true understanding of your industry, a true understanding of what your IT infrastructure looks like. So what that's doing is it's making organizations, IT organizations and CISOs understand that the old way of dealing with these things isn't going to work. Just focusing on complete prevention and protection isn't going to work. We've seen that that's been the focus for decades, and all we've seen is it's still week after week we see a new victim, whether it's an organization, even an entire country, or specific healthcare organizations, financials, city states, municipalities. You're seeing all these victims continue, and they all had pretty standard cybersecurity infrastructure in place. So what we're seeing is that change is now focusing from just securing these network parameters, aka focusing on simply preventing an attack, but to mitigating risk, to safeguarding the data that's spread across devices, systems, and clouds. It's just making sure that you have a bend, not break approach, and that's what we mean by this. And so when we define what cyber resilience is, it's simply the ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from a cyber attack. It's not just being able to prevent. It's not just being able to say, well, our IT organization, our entire company is bulletproof to cyber attacks, because that's not true. So it's about mitigating risk. And there's a really important quote that we found from CDW that really illustrates what this means. And the quote is, "Prevention isn't the answer. Organizations have never had success stopping attacks. To survive, they need to build a strong internal security culture that mitigates risk. Surviving the accident is what's important, not preventing it in the first place." So this really illustrates the point we're trying to make. And this isn't just something that just started in 2019, is going to be adopted by 2020. But it's been an evolution of understanding, one, the way today's threat landscape looks like, there's no way that you can completely prevent anything that's going to happen. The scale and the pace of innovation from cybersecurity criminals is becoming alarming. And so the focus isn't just on preventing. The focus has to be on mitigating risk and protecting what's most important, your critical data, and to make sure that your systems are up and running. And for that, you need to be able to have the right data protection in place, the right planning, the right testing, the right education internally as well. And there's so many other factors that we can go into. But at a high level, that's really what's happening. It's the shift from cybersecurity to cyber resilience. And that brings us to our third prediction, prediction number 3. Continuous data protection, or as CDP, as many of you know it, is a technology standard for recovery in 2020. And this is also an evolution that we're seeing. And based on that same survey that we had with IDC, where 500 of your peers were surveyed, those that had a digital transformation initiative, those that had low tolerance for downtime, that really couldn't have any interruptions to their business, 82% of those respondents undergoing these initiatives believe that data protection transformation is important to their success. Now, let's think about that. Why is that? Well, if you look at the way that traditional recovery goes, and what I mean by traditional recovery is I mean by having, your siloed DR and backup solutions, right? If you think of folks dealing with ransomware, accidental deletions, you think of, that's a backup scenario. Now, if you look at this specific process as it stands, really kind of on par with what we would call the 3-2-1 rule. You have your production environment, you have a specific backup infrastructure, and then you have some type of offsite storage, right? Whether that's a cloud archive or even tape. But there's very specific challenges here that we're okay to deal with, 10 years ago. But at the rate of innovation today, at the risk everyone's facing, and at the lower or no patience for downtime that we have today, it's just not going to cut it. Now, why is that? Well, think about it. Just in the nature of traditional backup technologies, you're dealing with snapshots. So because of the performance impact that these snapshots have on your production environment, most organizations only have what they would call a daily copy. So within that daily copy, let's say that you have to deal with a deletion, or even in more severe case, you have to deal with ransomware. Let's say you're at any point in the day, you're dealing with an inherent loss of data, right? Where it's 12 hours, 24 hours, and that's assuming that your backup restore doesn't fail. That's already an accepted data loss. That's unacceptable in today's environment. And it's not just that, but usually it's dedicated hardware, these actual appliances that you have to deal with that are expensive, that make scaling your infrastructure very difficult, that make really choosing what you want to do with the future, of what vendors you want for storage and whatnot, and data protection. It makes it a challenge because you also have to deal with refreshes, and these become legacy appliances in the future as well. And if you think about it as well, just because of the very nature of snapshots, things like ransomware and backup, it's not suited for what we would call a disaster recovery scenario, aka ransomware. And then you're also dealing with extreme inconsistencies in your multi-VM applications. And then at the end, you're also depending on tapes. It's very difficult to depend on tapes. You can't control what environment they live in and what's going on. And that recovery is very targeted. So if you think of examples that we've seen from ransomware, it's not just the data loss that they experience and the stop to operations after they're attacked and their servers are encrypted, but it's also the amount of time their IT organizations take to be able to effectively recover these multi-VM applications. So when you think about that, that time is just as valuable as the data itself that's at risk. But let's look at that a little bit more. If you think about the multi-VM applications or enterprise applications that you have in your environment, if you most likely have, daily backups that you have to take, you're now seeing that same application and all of the VMs underneath it now registering at different checkpoints throughout the day. So that's fine when you simply have to store this data for, maybe for compliance reasons or whatever it is that retention policy that you have. But when it comes to quickly recovering that data, it's impossible to do it consistently because you have to take the amount of time to find out what is the common denominator of all these VMs within my multi-VM application being recovered at the same time. Think about it, restoring the backup doesn't take that long, but it's understanding when to restore, how to restore, and which are the applications at risk. And this is really the biggest anchor that your IT organization faces around the amount of time that they have to take. All of the time that you have to focus today on your strategies of enabling digital growth, you can't afford to spend all of your time keeping the lights on, especially as the risk of ransomware continues to grow. So don't just think of these risks as data loss, but think about it as the inconsistent recovery as well. And here's the proof. Here's actually an interesting assessment from Gartner. And if you look at the mechanisms for people who have data protection today, when you think about protecting their mission critical IT services or critical and important IT services, most are actually already using some sort of replication technology, most likely for DR scenarios, because they realize that both the data loss and the time spent on recovering their backups is difficult. But here's the issue. Most folks who are using replication still have backup technology there. So you're dealing with these siloed solutions that aren't really giving you a lot of value, and they're not guaranteeing your ability to protect, to recover, and to effectively manage your data in the face of any threat, especially ransomware. Now, when we've said this statement around continuous data protection, what do we actually mean by that? Well, as we've already stated, you need replication technology, continuous replication that isn't based on an appliance or snapshots, but it is based on hypervisor level replication. But you still need a mechanism to be able to rewind and recover that data. And that's where you need some type of journaling technology that enables that. But most importantly as well, you need application consistency to be able to do so in a timely manner and recover your multi-VM enterprise applications as one cohesive unit. And you can't just do this for a 4 to 4 hour, 1 day, 2 day type of retention period. You need these capabilities from seconds to years to avoid the same pitfall that most organizations have with their legacy backup solutions. So when you think of, and you're going to start seeing a lot more vendors throw this term out. And we started this 9-10 years ago, and these are really the core competencies and the core capabilities that you need to have in order to call your solution a continuous data protection. And that's that replication, the journal or the mechanism to rewind and recover granularly, the ability to protect your applications consistently, and to do it over long periods of time, from seconds to years. And that brings us to prediction number 4. And this goes hand in hand with the previous one. Data protection solutions are going to converge. Organizations are going to transition from point solutions to a platform. Now, everyone is seeking some sort of convergence, some sort of consolidation to make their life easier. And why is that? Well, let's look at what are the historically siloed solutions that we're talking about, right? We've already mentioned them. We talked about DR. Most organizations have a DR strategy in play, right, for their first 30 days. And then, or first few days, and then they have backup for compliance reasons, or to also deal with what they think they need to do with accidental deletions, outages, or even ransomware. But then they also have to manage some sort of tool to able to manage their workloads in the cloud. And I don't mean just data protection in the cloud, but I also mean migration and whatnot. So most vendors, most organizations are now dealing with these 3 solutions, right? There's 3 different SKUs, and they present challenges. There's a lot of challenges with this, right? If you think about it, a lot of these backup and DR solutions, it's legacy technology. So if you're adapting new clouds, things get clunky. They don't work very well. So you're mixing old tech with new, which is a traditional issue that we have with IT at the moment. But then you have no centralization, right? For specific use cases and specific scenarios, you now have to go to different interfaces and really understand, well, this is going, we need to go see our backup solution GUI, or we need to do this with a DR or manage our cloud. And now you're dealing with multiple areas where you have to, make sure that you're aware of what's going on. You're also getting mixed performance. You may have one solution that works really well, but it's just, your DR solution that takes a day or 2, but then your backup is clunky, or you don't have any type of way to migrate your cloud workloads as well. So you have different performance SLAs or even SLOs with your managed service provider as well. And when you think about the resources, usually you need dedicated backup administrators, dedicated DR administrators, dedicated cloud architects, folks who specialize exclusively on that legacy technology, except for the cloud. And so this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of headcount. It makes things slow. And it also reduces the visibility. If you think about having visibility into what your protection scope looks like, what are your RTOs, what are your RPOs. If you have different workloads, right? You have on-prem and you have on cloud, but you also have different solutions. This can get very complex. And then you also, and I think this is something we're all familiar with, it's the cost and licensing challenges, right? You're dealing with rising costs, continuous challenges around the licensing and renewals. And every time each of these vendors adds maybe a new capability, what they're doing is that they're potentially adding, making you upgrade or making you find a new SKU, and it makes the renewals very difficult. So all of this really what it does around having siloed solutions, it makes things very difficult. You have to manage different licenses. You're dealing with performance issues. You're dealing with multiple people dedicated to different solutions that are kind of almost dedicated to the same thing. So there's a lot of redundancies here that can be solved for. Now, as we look at 2020 and beyond, what we consider the future of IT resilience, or what we call the nirvana, is that, and this is something that everyone's looking for. Everyone's looking for a way to converge their backup tools, their cloud tools, and their DR with a foundation of what we would call CDP, based on continuous availability and continuous hypervisor-based replication that can guarantee availability, not only from seconds, but years from now. And it's consolidating all those tools because it's about reducing complexity, about delivering availability, making sure that you're accelerating your cloud adoption, and not in the sense of just adopting the cloud, but really succeeding in it and making sure that you can still retain your SLAs, but you still unlock all the value of the cloud. And it's all going to be based on that replication and journal technology. This is what people are going to continue to look for. This is what analysts are going to start driving. And this is really our main prediction, is the future of IT resilience really rests in being able to converge all these solutions and just make sure that you're simply available and able to recover and resume your data at any time. This brings us to prediction number 4. And I think this is one that we're all familiar with. I just came back from the Gartner IOCS conference, and this was the main topic of conversation in all of the sessions. And it's really about the continued shift in workloads at the enterprise level to the cloud. So that's where our prediction comes from. Our largest share of enterprise workloads will reside in the cloud. Now, that's what everyone's strategy has. And this isn't nothing new. That's for 2020, right? Mostly 80% of all organizations have some type of cloud strategy, have some type of approach. And this is kind of based on the same survey by Gartner as well. And everyone's trying to unlock what the value of public and private clouds do, right? Where you're around reducing IT costs, driving growth, and making things more agile, enabling your ability to scale, and just simply becoming more innovative. Now, there's still key challenges with that. But this is what the environment looks like, right? Most organizations in the future maybe will have their DR or even their backup in the cloud. They still have to maybe manage multiple on-prem regions, but they're adopting some sort of public cloud or even a private cloud or a service provider of their choice. Now, this presents a lot of challenges because now you're dealing with disparate environments, different data workloads, different managements and governance. So it does bring issues, right? Especially around the visibility side. And a lot of these are aligned with the challenges that you have around your siloed data protection solutions. But your visibility into each workload performance and the consumption that you're going to have, right? How much is this actually going to cost me? How do I plan my infrastructure accordingly? Managing these legacy data protection tools in the cloud can be very difficult. Your testing capabilities, even your difficulty moving in or out of clouds. Now, most organizations and vendors can tell you, oh yeah, we can move you to the cloud immediately, you can resume your operations. But what happens if you aren't too happy with that public cloud or that private cloud? You need to be able to migrate back, and you need to be able to do it cost effectively with a solution that allows you to do it. Now, this is the key capability in our prediction that you really need to succeed to really unlock the promised benefits of the cloud. And what it is you need the ability to protect, manage, and move your workloads to, from, and between clouds. This is the one key capability that you need to be able to unlock that value. Otherwise, you're just adding a new technology stack to your already loaded infrastructure, and you're not really unlocking those cost values, those performance and innovation values as well. So to summarize our predictions, before we really go into how Zerto is preparing itself for the future of IT resilience, I wanted to summarize the predictions, right? And the first one being, not only is the costs and consequences of downtime, but the volume is going to increase as well. It's going to be an even bigger threat to your business. 2, Along with that, cyber attacks like ransomware are driving the need for cyber resilience. You're going to see a continued shift in cybersecurity strategies, not just on prevention, but on mitigating risk. Just think of a bend not break approach. And then we're going to see continuous data protection as the standard for recovery. And I don't mean just short-term or long-term backup or DR. I just mean the standard for being able to recover your data is not going to rely anymore on snapshots and on legacy backup technology, but on CDP. And our fourth prediction, you're going to see vendors start transitioning from point solutions to one platform. They're going to be able to converge the DR, their backup, and their migration capabilities in the cloud within one platform to unlock that value. And then fifth, you're going to see these convergence we've just talked about. They're going to go from point solutions to a specific platform. Now, when we look at these predictions that we've made and these assumptions and things that we've forecasted, how are we preparing for that? What do we see as the future of IT resilience if you're a customer of Zerto? Well, this is our vision, and our vision really encompasses this, and it's to enable an uninterrupted world for all technology users, consumers, and businesses. Our vision isn't just to reduce costs or improve your SLAs or make things a little bit easier. Our vision, and we want you to associate Zerto for simply not having any interruptions, giving you a seamless digital life that you have access to your data, to your workloads when you need it. So you're not just backing up and taking time to recover, but you're simply protecting your data and resuming operations, regardless of what risk you face, you're able to do that. Now, what do we actually do? Well, we converge cloud mobility, disaster recovery, and backup solutions into a single, scalable IT resilience platform. Anytime we add a new capability, and our latest capability that we added was backup, we simply give it to you. We don't expect you to pay an additional SKU for a net new capability or aspect of our platform. Everything that we innovate, everything that we drive, we provide to you within one single, scalable, software-only platform. Now, if you look at what the platform actually consists of, well, you have your DR solution, or inherently, you have your backup solution. You have the ability to migrate, to be able to protect your data in multi-cloud and hybrid clouds. You have orchestration tools, and then you have complete visibility and analytics across the board. This is one UI, one interface for your entire protection scope that doesn't rely on legacy technology, that relies on continuous data protection to give you the ability to build out a stream of your data and simply recover to a specific point in time instead of having to deal with snapshots. Now, when we talk about the Zerto difference, right, it's really around three things. And these three things are really aligned around the pain points that you see with legacy technologies today. And that starts with replication. Our replication, we focus on hypervisor-based replication using change block tracking. So think of us as building a stream, an instance stream, if you'd like, of checkpoints every 5 seconds that have no performance impact to your production environment. So what you can do instead is you can just simply rewind and recover to 5 seconds before at any point in time. And instead of dealing with protection gaps from snapshots, you don't have to do that anymore. We're native, it's based on a scale-out architecture, and it's agentless. So you have the ability to enjoy this replication that's non-disruptive. And this also applies to our testing as well for your DR as well. And then you look at the journal that we have. Within that journal or that mechanism that you can rewind and recover to any point in time within 5-6 seconds of granularity, you can actually recover entire sites, entire applications seamlessly, individual VMs, or even at the file level as well. And so we kind of covered the replication technology, the journal mechanism, and that's more around the data loss itself, but around the time spent on recovery operations. This is, I think, our biggest differentiator, and it's our application consistency. Instead of dealing with disparate checkpoints for your multi-VM applications, you can now consistently protect your applications as one entity. So it simply takes a few steps to create what we would call a virtual protection group, and from there, in the case that you want to move that protection group into the cloud, or you simply want to recover that application, you're able to do it within seconds. No more trying to find the common denominator and make sure you're at the right checkpoint. You simply recover all of them within one application stack instead of having disparate VMs across multiple checkpoints throughout your daily backup process. So it's really about having just continuous availability of your data and being able to recover it whenever you need. And that's our vision, giving you one platform where you can thrive in your multi-cloud and hybrid cloud based on continuous availability, data protection, and workload mobility. Regardless of what your strategy is, if you want to stay on-prem, you can do that as well. If you want to adopt public cloud and also within a hybrid cloud strategy, you can do that. If you're looking at having a managed service provider, to still having a public cloud as well, you can do that. We give you the freedom, the flexibility of choice, not to be tied down by a specific vendor, but giving you the ability to just move those workloads however you need, whenever you need, from, to, and between clouds. That's really the core value add here. And if you look at what we would call our 3 pillars, they're based on the 3 principles and 3 capabilities we want to give you within our entire platform. That's continuous availability, right? Being able to just resume operations whenever you need, despite whatever risk you're facing, right? Whether that's deletions, outages, ransomware, or even a hurricane, right? Or even compliance reasons as well. Just knowing that your technology, our CDP, is giving you the ability to simply rewind and recover within seconds. But also think of it from a move perspective, giving you the workload mobility that you need to, from, between public-private clouds, so that if you need to modernize your infrastructure, if you need to consolidate, especially if your company has an M&A strategy, just giving you the ability to do what you need to do with these workloads, and also being able to test them and unlock new DevOps scenarios so that you can continuously test, make sure that the move will go well. And that also applies to data protection as well. And finally, being able to thrive in that multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environment, helping you unlock the cost value, unlock the performance and innovation value without seeing some of the challenges that folks have to deal with within their cloud strategies. So I really want to thank you guys for your time. I really want to make sure that everyone was aware. We're going to provide you with the recording and everything. But before we stop this webinar, I want to just give you an idea of where we got a lot of our data. And that's from the State of IT Resilience report. Now, in this report, this is the same report that we surveyed over 500 folks, and there's so many more questions around IT resilience that we've asked. So you'll see honest answers from your peers of what threats are they dealing with, what does their technology look like, what do their future strategies look like, and how some of them are even going to be able to use Zerto to unlock that value. So I want to thank everybody for your time, and I'm going to make sure I can chat the questions box. So if you have any questions, you can add them here, and we'll make sure we can answer them. If we're not able to answer those questions within due time, we'll just send you an email with that answer. I can even get on a conversation with you. But if you have any questions, just make sure to click the questions tab and then add it there, and we'll be able to send it. The first question I received was, will we be receiving the slides from this webinar? Yes, we're going to send you a recording with a PDF of the actual deck itself, so you can kind of use that for whatever use case you need. If you have any other additional questions from that, we'll be able to answer them as well. So I'm going to give about a minute or two for anybody to type up any additional questions that they may have. So will the IDC report be provided? Yes, we can actually send that in the follow-up email, or you simply Google State of IT Resilience with Zerto, and you can download the report from there or wait for our email. But yes, it's available to all. So another question I received was, in the event of ransomware, how do I know when to recover from? Well, this is always an interesting question, right? Because you may get the alert from ransomware at a specific point in time around when you see that vulnerability and you see the encryption in your data, right? So sometimes you'll know immediately based on the alert that you get, and you simply rewind seconds back. But there's certain scenarios where you don't actually know when to recover from, or don't know if that replication that you have, that replica, is safe to restore back to production. We actually had a customer of ours use our own solution as a data forensics mechanism, right? We provide you the ability to isolate workloads, to be able to have a sandbox environment where you can test that data if it's safe or not, and then you can make sure that you can restore it to your production environment. So it all really depends on what type of ransomware you're getting. And we can get more deeper into that later on a phone call, or we can send some data your way. But it really depends on when you know you're encrypted, and then also if you know that that data is safe. So there's a few testing mechanisms that we have for that as well. Another question I have is, we currently have Zerto, but do not believe we are using the full capabilities. Who to contact to review our environment? That's a great question. We really want everyone, sometimes we see customers use us for 1 or 2 scenarios. Because everything is built into the platform, you have the ability to to scale as much as you want and to use it for whatever your needs are. So what I would do is I would recommend that you reach out to your account executive and your system engineer. We'll take down your contact information from this question and make sure they reach out to you so you can be fully aware and enabled on how to fully leverage the IT resilience platform. So thank you for that. So I think we're going to cap it off there. If you have any questions left, what you can do is just send over an email from this invite, and we'll send you the IT resilience report and the webinar recording as well. So I want to wish everybody a happy holidays and thank you for your time and attention. Thank you so much.